How does it work? Like,
Okay.
okay, that's how it works.
So we're broadcasting live here now from the West Steps of City Hall. We're with a couple of people that were arrested during the raid on Tuesday night, and we're gonna briefly, because I know they're very tired. They were in jail and they have a story to tell, and we're gonna briefly hear the story from you guys of what happened to you on Tuesday night.
Hi, true believers.
Introduce yourselves first of all.
Hi, my name is Patty Alfonso.
My name is Chris Devsich, Guido of the Luminaries crew, world famous.
Beautiful. Tell me what happened, Guido. I've been hearing little stories here and there. I mean, I was seeing people were tweeting me and telling me that you had been handled viciously by the LAPD. I'd really like to hear it in your words. What happened?
Okay, well, if you want to see the first-hand account, it was just posted today to YouTube, youtube.com/Guido, Guido, Corleone, Corleone TV. So you can see it firsthand. It's all there. It's the events leading up to my arrest
Okay.
and the events of the arrest until the camera goes flying and it turns into audio and you can hear her arrest. But basically, I mean, I saw a highly militarized paramilitary force come in as if they were storming a camp of guerrillas, like armed uh, soldiers. They came in, they smashed everything in their path. We were on the outskirts of the park, and we saw them totally like brutalize a man in a wheelchair, push someone into a man in a wheelchair. This large overweight man, they knocked him to the ground, they kicked him, and that was our first kind of sight, our first visual of it. What would you say?
Absolutely. It was just watching them come in towards the park. The energy was really intense, and everybody was a little bit anxious. And we were kind of running around trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And of course, we went straight into the park because that was the plan, was to protect the park and the center of the park. So we ended up right on the outside perimeter of the circle of cops that were encircling the center of the park. And we were chanting and asserting our First Amendment right to be there. We were actually talking to the police officers. I was actually trying to humanize myself to the police officers. I introduced myself. I told them I was 36, that I was a healer, that I had a mom and a dad and a sister, and I started just talking about myself. Um, it was interesting because they didn't even want to make eye contact, and they certainly didn't want to listen to that part. And Chris Guido was filming, and he was filming the inside of the circle where all of the protesters had been sitting around the tent.
Yeah, so like she said, we were doing chants, we were doing mic checks, we were talking to the police. All of it was very engaging. You know, it was very appealing to the humanity of them and ourselves. And I was speaking to an officer who looked like some sort of commanding officer. His name was Pedrosa. And I was asking him what side of history he wanted to be on. I was asking what the plan was, what they wanted to do, that we're all in this together. There was an officer by the name of Escamilla who had a beanbag gun or rubber bullet gun. He was shining it with a light up at the people in the trees and aiming the gun at journalists. Do you have a
I
picture of
do.
him? That guy right there.
Uh huh.
So seeing that was like very disturbing. But anyway, I was
Right.
talking to a guy named Pedrosa, and he said, "Sir, you're gonna have to turn the light off on your camera." And I asked him why, and he says, "Because it's blinding me." And I responded that, well, every time you all shine a light in my face when I get pulled over, it blinds me too. Are you aware of that? I turned the light off the camera. He said you could shoot as much as you want as long as you turn the light off. So I turned the light off. Moments later, I'd say about a minute or so later, I'm documenting white, whatever, lab coat police, like
Oh,
toxic,
the hazmat suit
the
guys.
hazmat
Uh
suit police, like up in the distance. It looked like they were pepper spraying people. I don't know what it was. I think they're starting to arrest people. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a cop lunges at me, lunges at my camera, not even at me. So I was targeted by the LAPD because I was documenting it on film. He lunged at my camera. The camera goes flying. He brutally rips me and throws me back into the police line. I'm tackled by like 6 cops. My head is ground into the ground, totally thrown to the concrete. They yank my arm back. It's still sore, and they arrest me. And I was telling Patty to get the phone because they really wanted that. I knew that if they captured that phone, that they wouldn't give it back to me or it would be seized as evidence or something to that. And I don't know, tell her what you saw, because at that point it was really all very blurry, and I was like, they got me.
Yeah, so he was just filming, and this cop just came out of nowhere and grabbed him and started pulling him in. And so I reached for him and started pulling him, and there was just kind of back and forth. And then they took him into the inside of the police perimeter, and as he said, they threw him down to the ground. And I was just trying to watch. I was just trying to bear witness to what was happening. There was like 6 cops and one guy. So I was, needless to say, extremely concerned for his safety. And he told me to get his phone, so I went and I got his phone and I put it in my pocket because I didn't realize that it was still filming. And then as they were carrying him out, I was following on the outside perimeter, just watching, just making sure that he was safe and that he was okay. And when I reached the crosswalk, they had stopped as well, so I stopped in front just to watch. And I was crying and I was really upset and I was hysterical. And this police officer came up to me and was like, you need to keep moving, you need to keep going. And I was like, no, I'm not moving. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch. I am worried for his safety and I'm going to watch what's happening. And so then he grabbed me and violently pushed me and was like, you need to keep moving. And then, of course, he grabbed me, so I reacted and I turned around and I told him, get his hands off of me, to not fucking touch me. And then that's when he got really mad at me and arrested me. He put my hands behind my back and he was really squeezing my hands really tight. And then another police officer approached and started pleading with him to let me go, that I was on my way out. And then I was like, I'm leaving, I'm not going to go. And the police officer was like, no, it's too late for that, you're going in. And I could hear people around me saying, just let her go, just let her go. But they took me in and they were telling me trying to explain to me the right way for me to put my hands so they could put the handcuffs on. And I told them I can't because you're squeezing my hands so tight that I can't feel what my hands are doing. If you want my hands a certain way, you're going to have to do it because I can't feel what you're doing. And they arrested us and they took all of our possessions. They put us on the bus. From the bus, I witnessed the other police officers that went to surround the people who were protesting across the street. And that was extremely confusing because those people were just standing there not doing anything. They weren't in the middle of everything. And that was a really, really scary thing to see because there were so many police officers and I saw them surround this whole group of people and rush them down the street. And I don't know what happened because they took them really far away.
I just want to say something though about my arrest specifically. Like after it took place, I was furious, and I did my best, like as I was being arrested, to keep it together enough to explain to the members of the press and the media that saw me. Because as far as I know, I'm the second person to be arrested. As far as I know, there was one other person who was arrested, and maybe there were people who were arrested earlier, but I believe I was the second person to be arrested. So a lot of the media caught me, and I was just very clearly, and I was pissed off, like telling people that I was targeted as a member of the free press. I was targeted and my constitutional rights of freedom of the press were violated. Not to mention all the other constitutional rights of freedom of speech, freedom to peacefully assemble, a petition to address our government for a redress of grievances. All that was violated and we know that. But I just want to make it clear that I was targeted because I was documenting it on film, and the police officer lunged at my camera. They wanted me, and to what I understand, like there was a dispersal order. It was very loud, confusing, complicated, but I believe there was still time on that dispersal order. We're researching it. We're comparing the footage because there's like there's pieces of tape where you could hear our voices, and then like the one that I have. So I don't know. Then there was, once we were arrested, there was all kinds of like dehumanizing that took place. All the cuffs on most of the guys were so tight, their hands were turning purple. A cop said to me when he was clipping, the one cop that had one pair of pliers that was clipping the cuffs, he said, "Wow, those are on very, very tight." That's what he said to me. I didn't get a free phone call. I didn't get a glass of water while I was in prison. The phone in my cell didn't work. I was never read my rights. The only time I was read my rights was when I filed a formal complaint with Internal Affairs that I was targeted as a member of the media. Um, I'm a musician. I'm a filmmaker, and this is what I do. And I was targeted because of that.
I was arrested around 3 a.m. and I was taken to the detention center, and I called my mom so she would post bail, and she had the bail person at the jail by about 10 a.m. At 12 noon, I was transferred to Van Nuys, and I kept saying, I don't understand, my bail person is outside. And they're like, oh, maybe we won't let you go, or you're going to get transferred, whatever. They sent me to Van Nuys, where I had to be reprocessed and rebooked, even though they had already done all of that in the detention center. And all of that, I did not get released until about 9:30 at night. And I know that the bondsman was out there because we called him several times, and he kept saying, I'm out here. They're not even letting me in the door. I don't know why they're not letting me pay your bail. I'm here. And then I called my mom, and she's like, no, he's there. I don't understand. And then I would ask the police officer, the bondsman is outside. And she was like, there's nobody out there for you. There's nobody out there for you guys. We don't know what's going on. So there was definitely a lot of mind games being played. And then there was also, the excuse that there were so many of us, and there just weren't enough people to process us all at once. But the bondsman that we got to get Chris out, he later told us that he went and bailed Chris out, and when he left, the police officers were outside playing football. So I don't know how busy they were that they couldn't,
No,
process all the paperwork.
No, I believe that he said they were playing football during the raid. During the actual raid, police officers were playing football in the background. That's what he was talking about.
No, I thought he's whatever.
Okay,
I think
either
he said
way,
after he paid your bail. After he paid your bail,
we'll get confirmation on that.
he went outside and they were playing football outside. And then it took him like 4 hours to release him after he had paid bail. So.
It was it was all very traumatizing. The dehumanization of the whole thing was horrible. I saw a guy in there get his wrist broken. There were women who were on the buses for hours, 6 or 7 hours, who had to urinate on the buses. My direct experience, I think, was relatively bland to some of my other brothers and sisters, but there was a number of violations of human rights that took place, even in my case. And I think that it's imperative right now that we look at, I've heard reports of up to 49 of our brothers and sisters still in jail.
That's right.
I just want to say to everybody watching and everybody out there and everybody who's a part of this movement does not move forward until those people are released. Now, we can talk about stuff, we can maintain, GA, all that. I think it's important. But I also think it's important that we focus on the people who put their lives, put their freedom on the line, and we get them out of jail immediately. I commend the people who marched on Twin Towers today. I commend everybody, for all their continued dedication and support to the movement. But please, let's get our brothers and sisters out of jail immediately. Hey, that being said, one last thing. Even though with all the human rights abuses, we led GAs in prison. We led marches. We led chants. We led songs. Solidarity chants.
We did Qigong. We did all kinds of stuff to try to stay together. So.
Right, beautiful. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experience and for your sacrifice and everything that you're doing, and you being so engaged in the movement, and keep spreading the word solidarity. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank
Love
you.
and solidarity.
Peace worldwide
Starts from inside.